Hello and welcome to Downriver Rescue Connection. I'm your host, Patty Radikovich, and it's my pleasure to bring you information on the animal rescue community and animal rescues. On today's episode, we have a different type of guest than we're used to. We have a bunch of rescue kids. So welcome to the show, guys. So I'm going to introduce everybody. We have Hannah over here on my far right, Slade, Avery, Alyssa, and Maria down in the front. So the reason why we're doing this show today with Rescue Kids, we brought you a show before with rescue volunteers, and we wanted to show that there is a different side of rescue too. It's not just for adults. Kids of all ages can help out. Kids love animals. It's a great way to teach children about responsibility, to help them engage with animals, let them show their compassionate side. So we wanted to bring some of the kids on, and some of these kids I've worked with, and I know the older ones probably don't like me calling them kids. I realize that. Some of you guys I've worked with before, you've helped out with my rescue, and other ones I haven't had the pleasure of working with yet. So let's, why don't we start and just have you guys just tell us briefly, remind people what your name is and your age, and tell us when you first started to like animals. So, Alyssa, you want to start?
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm 16. I started working in rescue 10 years ago when I was about 5 years old for Metro Animal Adoption Association, and then I work with Paws in Michigan now.
Okay, great.
I'm Avery, 8.5. I started about maybe a half a year ago, and I work at Woodhaven Animal Shelter.
Great. Slade, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Slade, and I'm 10, and I started working with the animal shelter when I was like 4, I think, or 5, and I was like helping animals by taking care of them with
You cleaned the litter boxes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you were at the Wyandotte shelter, right?
Wyandotte Animal Shelter, Paws in Michigan.
Okay. And Maria?
My name is Maria. I'm 8, and I started working out. I started helping out when I was 4 or 5, I don't know.
Okay.
I started working with Basil Buddies.
Okay, yep. Maria is one of our longtime volunteers. And then Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm 17. I've loved animals all my life, and I've never really, when I was younger, didn't have the opportunity to work with animals until Basil Buddies.
Great. All right, so now who wants to tell us, why animals? Of all the different things that you could do, what makes you interested in working with animals? Okay, go
When
ahead.
I was younger, my mom got me into rescue when I was very young, and I just fell in love with animals because they're so sweet, and it's something I've enjoyed my whole life.
Great. Is there anybody else that wants to tell us, why? Maria?
I started looking at when we got our dogs and cat. I kind of started to pet them and everything, and I started to have fun and everything with them.
Okay. And Avery, you wanted to answer too? Want to give?
I had my first dog, and I loved training him and cuddling with him, and then I started doing research, and I've loved animals ever since. I love reading about them and all different kinds of stuff that you could do with animals.
Great. Slade, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah. My mom started wanting me to go to the animal shelter, and when I did that, I saw animals who needed homes, and when I was taking care of them, they really needed homes for their owners to take care of them instead of just leaving them out into the wild of nature and to be
Just to be helped?
Yeah, to be helped. And if they didn't have an owner, they would have to stay at the Paws in Michigan Animal Shelter. So I started to help them out a lot.
Okay, great. And Hannah, you had something you wanted to say too? No? Okay. The question was, I'll repeat, sorry, it's been so long, we'll get back to the question. So the question was like, what made you want to help animals as opposed to like everything else that you could do to volunteer? Why animals?
Because
Make sure you put your mic up.
animals, I believe, have a soul like we do. When I look into their eyes, I see a soul I can relate to. And yeah.
Okay, great. All great answers. All right, so now I think some people are wondering, because I know a lot of people, they want to get their kids in rescue or working with animals, and a lot of times they call a place and they say, "I'm sorry, your child is too young." Did that happen to anybody here? Mm-hmm. Raise your hand if that happened to you. Okay, so that's very common. That because of liability reasons, laws, a lot of times you want to help out, but there's not a place for you to help. So a lot of you have found rescue groups, or you found a way to help the different shelters, and we'll talk about like different things that you guys have done. One of the things that we're going to do, one of the reasons that we're having this show, is Basil's Buddies is actually going to have a kids group. We're going to start in the springtime, and it's going to be open for kids of all ages, and we'll be able to find activities that kids of any age can do. And I know that Avery, you're going to help us with that, right? Mm-hmm. And I know Maria, you've been volunteering with us before, so I'm sure you're going to help us. And Hannah, this is the first you've heard of it, but you've helped with us before, so I'm sure you'll be helping. And Slade, I know your mom will make sure you help. And Alyssa, we don't really know you yet, but we'd love your help too. So,
Like bracelets and
yep.
the dog rocks and all.
Take the microphone. Go ahead.
And I'm working on the bracelets that I got, little bead bracelets with dogs, and I'm working on the rocks right now.
Great, yeah, so Avery has started helping us already, and that's one of the things that she did, is she's putting together, making some jewelry for us to sell at some craft shows, and she makes these really cute pet rocks that actually looks like little dogs. And so, now Alyssa, what do you do for volunteering?
I foster and I photograph animals for Pet Finder, and I photograph them and I foster.
Okay, so you do, so you're photographing animals. How did you get involved with that?
Well, I started getting involved in photography a couple years ago, and I started photographing animals, and I realized how much I loved it, and then I started doing like nature and stuff, and it's really blown up. I took the pictures at Paul's in the Park 2014. I shot that whole event. I'm doing Love Me Because too.
Okay, great. So who else wants to tell us what they do to volunteer? Maria, you want to tell us? So what are the types of things you do?
I go to some garage sales, and
Talk a little bit louder.
I go to the garage sales and everything and help out with that and everything.
Yeah, so you've helped us out with our garage sales. We've had big garage sales, and I know that you've done some crafts at your house for us. So that's great. What other types of things do you guys do? So Hannah, you had started working with Basil's Buddies, so what did you do with us?
I started out helping out with pet adoptions at like PetSmart, and yeah.
Great, and then you helped us out with our Christmas events too.
Mm-hmm.
Great, and so that's baking cookies, selling crafts, all that type of stuff. And then Slade, what are some of the things that you do for volunteering?
Well, for volunteering, I do stuff that would help animals, like feeding them and taking care of them. And my mom got me into volunteering there because she told me that animals would need help, and I volunteered for them, for the animals, to help them out and find them a home.
Did you have foster animals too that you had to help take care of?
I think I might have done fosters. Like, I had a cat and I fostered it. So.
That's right. Yeah, you had foster animals at your house. So how many of you guys have had foster animals? Okay. So somebody want to tell us, what does that mean when you have a foster animal? Go ahead.
You have a lot of responsibility to take care of the animal and give it love and teach it how to be normal, because in the shelter they don't really get a lot of love from, home, nature, and all that.
So it's like your own pet,
Yeah.
but you have to give it back when it goes up for adoption.
Yeah, which is hard sometimes.
Yes, Slade.
Well, like she said, when you like take care of them and all that, because you have to give them love. And by their old owners, where they just sell them or like they'll just leave them out into like grass and the road and all that. And they could get really seriously hurt. So as soon as they go to the animal shelter, and then as soon as you foster them, like she said, you have to take care of them, give them love until you give them back.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add about fostering? No? Okay. All right, so what are some things that, if you could do anything to help animals, what would you want to do? Avery, you want to start?
I'd be a vet and want to go to those animal shelters and give them blankets, warm blankets, food, and maybe foster a couple, and finally give them something to want to be adopted instead of being like, should I go with this person? Because last time that wasn't going too well.
Okay, so we have a veterinarian in training over here, and you want to do some other things too to help the animals at the shelters to make them more comfortable. So that's good. Maria, did you have? What would you want to do to help animals if you could do anything? Make sure you get the mic up to your mouth.
I would want to like be at a shelter and like help them out and like stay there and like stay with the animals.
Oh, so you want to stay with the animals so they're not by themselves? Okay.
So they aren't
Great.
lonely.
So they're not what?
Like lonely.
So they're not lonely. Okay, yeah. And Alyssa, you had something?
I would try to save all of them. That's my dream, to like open like a shelter, but it's not really a shelter, to save all of them, not to see any, like a non-kill shelter. That's my dream.
Okay. Hannah?
If I could do anything for animals, I would do whatever I can to put a stop to animal abuse. And when I'm older, I want to save my money and open an animal sanctuary.
Okay, great. All right, so what are your guys', tell us, what's your favorite type of animal? Slade, you want to tell us?
I'd like cats
Why?
because, like, as soon as you have them at home and they like get comfortable somewhere and you're sitting there, they would like come onto you and just lay on you, and they would just purr. And also, like when they yell like they're hungry, I'd go down there, give them each one scoop, like a full, and then they would just love me because I feed them like every day of my life.
Okay. And Avery, we're going to tell us what's your favorite animal?
It's a zebra, and I like them because their use of survival, they get in a big group and all their stripes confuse the animal or predator, and it just walks away.
Okay, great. Maria, what's your favorite animal? Hold your mic up.
Mine is a dog, and I like it because it's like you get to like feed them, sometimes brush them, and you can like cuddle with them and hold them and everything.
Okay. Anybody else want to tell us who their favorite animal is? Go ahead, Hannah.
My favorite animals are wolves
Wolves? Okay, great. Why do you like wolves?
because they're so beautiful and they live in a pack, which I think is like a family, and they'll do anything to protect their family.
Great. Do you,
My favorite animal is a dog. They're so sweet, and they're just my favorite.
okay, great. So I don't usually ask this of people, but do you guys have any questions that you want to ask me about animal rescue since I've been doing it for a long time? I'm putting them on the spot here. Yes, Avery. Oh, now she's going to quiz me. Go ahead.
Do you guys like find animals and then just take them so you can just actually give them food and all that, or do you like make sure that the animal is, has a home and something, or you just take it if it's on the street or anything, just randomly?
Well, there's a couple of different scenarios in there. So first of all, if you find an animal outside, you can try to catch it, but you don't. First of all, you don't know, is it a feral cat? Is it fearful of humans? Is it, some of the dogs are feral too. Usually, if you find an animal, we try to safely catch it. Especially, dogs usually have collars. Cats usually don't have collars. Especially if we see a collar on a dog, we're going to try to safely catch it and see if there's a collar and see, does it have a tag on it? Can we call the owner? See if it's lost. If they lost their dog. I've had many dogs that come running in my backyard that I've had to catch and get their collars and then call the number on the collar and have their owner come down, and I keep them until the owner can come down and pick them up. So sometimes it's that easy, but we don't generally tell people just go ahead and approach an animal, because you never know how it's gonna react. It could bite you. It might seem nice at first, and then the closer you get, a cat could come out and swat you. It could come and attack you. A dog could, a bite. So you have to know what you're doing when you approach an animal.
Maybe keep your hand kind of far and see if they get kind of curious.
Well, you typically don't extend your hands out to animals. You have to wait for. You usually wait, and usually I would not recommend that. I would recommend that for, one of you guys, if you saw one, that you'd go get your parent and have an adult help you with the animal. If there's animals that we think are feral, we could put food out for them, or if they're cats, there's traps that we put out for the cats to trap them. If we do get an animal and they don't have a tag, we scan them and make sure that they see if they have a microchip. If they're chipped, then you try to reconnect them with their owners. If not, it just depends on, we usually don't take them in. Well, sometimes we do take them directly in. We have a holding area, then they go to the vet, get checked out and everything. Other times, if there's no room, they're going to go to the shelter and at least get them in off of the street. So there's a couple of different ways we approach it, but we always check and make sure that that's nobody's animal that's missing their animal. Because that's one thing that sometimes people forget to do, is they find an animal and they think they're doing the right thing, so they take the animal and they put it in their garage or something, and then they decide to keep it, and they never look for an owner. And you don't know if that has an owner, so it's always good to take it to a vet, get it scanned, and make sure that somebody's not looking for that animal. Did you have something to say?
You
gotta hold your mic up a little more.
Do you know if when dogs or cats or someone bite them really hard, do they always just go right to get put down or stuff?
No, usually what happens is if somebody gets bit by an animal, usually they have to hold it in quarantine to make sure that the animal doesn't have rabies. There are some choices that people have. It doesn't automatically mean that animal bites you and somebody takes it away and it gets put to sleep. That's not usually how it works. That can happen, but typically you want to hold that animal and make sure that they don't have rabies. So bite cases are a little bit different. The police need to be involved most of the time, especially if it's a severe bite case like you were asking. And then you have to just follow the law.
Would you do it if they would bite you because they're trying to protect their owner?
If they're trying to protect their owner. So if you have a dog and your dog bites somebody,
yeah, like Sammy when he's trying to protect someone.
Well, that is something that owners need to be aware of their animals, and if their animals can be aggressive, then they need to take measures. They need to either get the dog in training to try to correct that, or they need to do a preventative strategy. So I know with you guys that your dog, sometimes you're not sure, so if somebody comes over, you put the dog in a different room so it can't ever have that happen, right? So that's what people need to be aware of. If something does happen, they need to address that issue. And if somebody gets bit, you have to go make sure they get medical attention for that. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yes.
Have you had any animals that you fostered that you ended up adopting?
Yes, we call that a foster failure.
We've had one of those.
Yeah. You know what? That happens with everybody. I think fostering is a great thing, and sometimes though you get one, and it is hard sometimes when you have to give them up, or sometimes like I always say, I I like it when I have like the little puppies or kittens, but only for so long. So once they get adopted, I'm actually happy that they go to another home. I mean, I love them and everything, but I like a calmer home. And so there's some people that they're very, very happy when their animals get adopted, the foster animals. There's other people that get very sad, but you know that they're going to a good home.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like in rescue, we actually count on a certain number that you end up keeping, because even though you love all of your fosters, sometimes you just have one that you bond with more, that you just have this special connection and you decide that, nope, this is home, like they picked me and they're gonna stay here. Or sometimes there are ones that, you know, if I have them for a certain amount of time and they're not getting adopted for whatever reason, I finally just say, I'm just gonna adopt it myself, because I don't, you know, I don't want them to be in this limbo period. And I've had some for several years that went without getting adopted, and I finally said, I think it picked me, so it's going to be mine now. So, yes, Hannah.
What do you do if you find an injured animal, or if your pet gets injured and the vets are closed?
Okay, that's a good question. So, if you find, there's two different things there. If you find it, if your pet gets injured, first of all, and the pets are closed, there is the emergency vets. Like there, usually in almost all areas, there's at least one emergency vet that's open, and you can usually call the vet, and they'll tell you if you need to bring it in or not. If it's something minor, they might just tell you, you know, just monitor it, but they'll tell you if you need to bring it in, and then you have to decide if you can. And unfortunately, you know, I mean, it's the emergency vet, they're a little bit more expensive, so you have to decide if you have the funds to do that. But there is that option for the emergency vets, and some vets are staying open later and later now. If you find a injured animal, a wild animal, or a cat or dog that's injured, the first thing is if one of you guys found it, I'd say get an adult, and you can call the animal control in your city. They often go to help wildlife. They help the injured wildlife. They can pick it up, or injured cats and dogs, and then other groups will come in. So rescue groups will be affiliated with the shelter. If it's a dog or a cat, they can call a rescue group. The rescue group can come and get that animal once it's been secured. If it's a wild animal, there's different wildlife sanctuaries and rehabilitation places that they have contact with. So it's usually best to go through the animal shelter in your city, because if you tried to call like every single rehab place yourself, you might not get any answers. And unfortunately, if it's late at night for a wild animal, you pretty much get left with calling the police station and leaving a message or something, or trying to. I mean, you don't want to injure the animal. Maybe if they're close to the side of the road, you could set something up so people don't go over in that area. But no, I mean, the best thing to do is know your animal shelter in the first place, because then if you know the animal control officers, if you know what your shelter's policies are, if you know what they do, then you'll be more comfortable if there comes a time that you need their services and to call them. Because if you move to a city and you don't know anything about the shelter, you might be a little bit leery about calling that shelter. So if you move somewhere, get to know your shelter, find out what they stand for, what their policies are, and then you'll be more comfortable with it. Yes, Slade, you had a question?
Yes. Would a dog bite kill somebody?
It could. So it depends on, the size of the dog, the severity of the bite. It depends on if it gets infected, if somebody just lets it go. Cat bites are very likely to get infected. If you get a cat bite, you definitely have to go to the ER, because it's going to get infected. Actually, if you get a human bite, there's a good chance that you'll get infected by a human bite, because they have more bacteria. Humans have more bacteria in their mouth than dogs do. So, and it's depending on the severity of the dog bite, but if it's a bite, you have to also worry about infection. So, but you do that with any bite from anything, you have to worry about infection. So, are there any last questions or anything that you guys would like to say about rescue? Because we're getting close to the end of our show. Yes.
Animal rescue is probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I love knowing that I've saved a bunch of animals, and I remember these animals like they come visit me with their foster parents. It makes me feel good knowing that I saved a life that could possibly have been put down.
Great. It's wonderful. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay. Well, we have little magnets. Our director for the show is also our resident artist. She did our lovely sign for our show, and she made these little magnets with our show symbol on them. So I'm going to pass these out. You guys can, just pass them on down to everybody. So we wanted to thank you guys for being on the show. So find your name. Okay, so hopefully that was painless for you guys to be on. I appreciate your bravery being on TV. It's not always that easy, but maybe you'll find a new career and help animals this way. So we hope that all pets are treated like family and that everybody finds a home. Until that time, we invite you to be part of the solution. And remember, please spay and neuter your pets. See you next time.